Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and Tony's showing you 5 decks that you can build for $50 or less. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So Yu-Gi-Oh can be extremely expensive, and I'm here to help you guys with that because I have some really good suggestions that can easily win you locals, and you can actually build the entire deck, main deck and extra deck for $50 or less for all 5 of these decks, which is really cool to be able to do. Each one is going to run you around $50, but some really good suggestions in here that are actually pretty good meta contenders. So let's go ahead and check out the first one, which is actually going to be Dynamorphia, which has had a lot of competitive success. And this is actually a super budget build that's very close to what a normal build would actually be for Dynamorphia. So let's go ahead and go over this deck. So the best normal summon in the entire deck is actually going to be Terverion, with the ability that if this card is normal or special summon, you can actually set a Dynamorphia trap directly from your deck to your spell and trap card zone, which is usually going to be your copy of Domain or Frenzy, so that you can fusion summon into KingJackGames or your copy of Rexsturm, which is the main boss monsters of the deck. Rexsturm is amazing to be able to summon out to your side of the field, because this card has a really cool effect that your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters they control that have attack greater than or equal to your life points, and the whole point of this deck is to see how low our life points can go with us still winning the game. This card has a really cool ability as well that quick effect you can pay half your life points, and the attack of all monsters that your opponent currently controls become equal to your life points. So if your life points becomes 1 off of this card's effect, your opponent's monster's attack points go to 1 attack point, which is absolutely crazy about this card. It's basically a walking skill drain. When your life points get that low with your copy of Rexsturm on the field, you're probably winning the game, because it's so easy to be able to do, and it's really fun for this deck to be able to do, because this deck counters a lot of your opponent's plays with cards like Intact, making sure that your plays go through. You also have a really big boss monster in the deck in the form of Zark, which is extremely nostalgic to be able to play in the deck, because the Soul of the Supreme King works really well in this build as well, because it has the ability that you pay half your life points to special summon a Supreme King Zark from your extra deck, ignoring its summoning conditions, but its effects are negated, and you return it back to the extra deck during the next turn, which is a really cool ability to be able to summon out a 4,000 attack point boss monster to be able to close out games. Another really cool boss monster you can play in the deck is Psychic End Punisher, which is a very budget option to be able to play, and since our life points are going to go so low because we have so many cards in the deck that pay half our life points, this card comes out absolutely massive to just be able to close games. The cool thing about this deck as well is you can play Shifter in this build, because there's so many cards that don't even worry about the graveyard, so this card is really good to be able to drop to make sure that your opponent's not going to be able to play. Plus, this is a really budget option. You can also play Droll instead for a more budget option if you want to, but Shifter is just really good to be able to play in this deck, because we're basically just controlling the board with all sorts of cards like Rexsturm and your other cards that are Dynamorphia and the Solemn Brigade. So for the next deck, guys, we actually have Dark World. Dark World actually got a structure deck, which makes the majority of the deck actually very cheap, with the most expensive card in this deck actually being Dark Corridor. Dark Corridor is really good in the deck, but it's about $10 to $11, which takes up a lot of our budget for the deck. But the nice thing is the main deck is very cheap, because the majority of it was reprinted in structure decks or reprinted it in other ways through other structure decks like the danger cards. The danger cards are all very cheap in this deck. Upstart Goblin runs you about $2, but the extra deck is extremely cheap to be able to pick up, because it's either been reprinted in tins or side sets or rarity collections or just the structure deck. So it's very easy to pick up the majority of the extra deck for this build. But all of your Dark World monsters revolve around getting discarded to the graveyard to be able to get some really cool abilities, like your copy of Rainbow. If it's discarded, it lets you add a level 5 or higher Dark World monster from your deck to your hand, like your copy of Grapha. If Grapha gets discarded, it pops a card on the field. You can loop through your copies of Silva to be able to rip 2 cards out of your opponent's hand every time it's discarded by their card effect, which your copy of Cerule will actually go to your opponent's side of the field and count as their monster, so it will actually rip the copy of Silva out of your hand, and you can loop between these 2 cards using your copy of Akashic Magician and Security Dragon to bounce these cards back to hand over and over again. Just make sure that you're going to summon them to zones that these cards will point to when you summon them out, so you can bounce them back with Akashic Magician and Security Dragon so that you can basically rip your opponent's entire hand, which is just not fair, but we can do it in the deck. We also have cards like Jinta that search out our copy of Gates of the Dark World, which is a great, not once per turn, effect to be able to banish a Fiend monster, discard a Fiend monster, and draw a card. Along with cards like Upstart Goblin, Allure of Darkness, and Brow, we have so many different ways to be able to draw, plus every single danger monster lets us draw a card when they're special summoned, which is really cool to be able to do. If you guys are unfamiliar with what danger monsters actually do, they all share a common effect that you can reveal this card in your hand. Your opponent only chooses one card from your entire hand, you discard the chosen card, and if it was not the discarded danger monster that you revealed, you special summon that danger monster to your side of the field and draw a card. However, if you discard your danger monster off an effect of anything, they get a really cool bonus effect, which is amazing. Like your copy of Bigfoot will pop a face-up card on the field, your copy of Nessie will add another danger from deck to hand, Chupacabra revives back a danger monster to your side of the field, Mothman lets both players draw a card and discard a card. Tsuchinoko just regardless special summons itself, aka Danger Noodle. And our copy of Jackalope just special summons any danger you want from the deck, which is amazing. But it's very easy to establish a crazy board with this deck, especially since you can Griffin lock your opponent, which is super easy for basically just 6 materials. You summon out your copy of your Mudracker to your Link Zone, and then you have your copy of Unicorn pointing upwards to it, and it will basically Griffin lock your opponent because it says special summon monsters on the field cannot activate their effects unless they're linked. And since we're basically occupying the Link Zone, it's not going to be able to go off, which is going to Griffin lock the opponent, which is hilarious to be able to do, and just basically locks them down. So this deck is really fun to be able to play. I've won very many locals with, and I've seen a lot of people win locals as well at my locals with Dark Worlds, and this is actually a really solid build for Dark World. The only thing I would usually do is play 2 copies of Corridor instead of 1, but since we're going for a budget build, and this card's like $11, we did bump this card down to 1, and you can definitely play it at 1 because it's one of the only Dark World cards in the entire game that is a hard once per turn. The rest of them are usually not hard once per turns. They basically just as many times as you can discard them, which is hilarious. So, for the next deck, we actually have Raid Raptors. And for this build, since we have so much like room to be able to play with the budget for this one, you can actually put a bunch of hand traps in here, because Ash Blossom is like $5 a piece, Nibiru's like $2 to $3 a piece, Veiler's like $2 to $3, I think it's like $2 a piece, and the rest of the extra deck is just pennies, besides one card, which is Arsenal Falcon, which is about $3 for the entire extra deck, which is insane. This deck is crazy because what you try and do is establish your copy of Rising Rebellion Falcon as quickly as possible on your side of the field, set up with the Rise Rank Up Magic Raid Raptors Force card, which is such a powerful card to be able to activate to instantly be able to summon out your copy of Rising Rebellion Falcon, which is such a cool name. This deck is very budget to be able to pick up because Tribute Lanius is like the most expensive Raid Raptor card outside of Arsenal Falcon. I think it's like $1 or $2. It's not very much at all, but this card is a walking Foolish Burial and is the basically almost like a 1-card combo for the deck. As you summon out this card to your side of the field, and once you do get to send a copy of Mimicry Lanius from your deck to the graveyard, and once you do that, you can search out anything that you want from your deck to your hand, which is amazing to be able to do. The only other one that's kind of expensive is your copy of Strangle Lanius, but with this budget for this deck, it's very easy to be able to pick up the entire deck for this price. If you're worried about a little bit of the budget, you can change out cards like the Ash Blossoms for Book of Moon, which is another option for you guys to cut down the budget a little bit more if you need to, but it's still very budget to be able to pick up because a lot of the cards have been reprinted in OTS packs or been printed since the new copies of the Raid Raptors got printed in one of the most recent sets. So it's very easy to be able to pick up this deck because the majority of the cards were originally released as commons outside of, say, Strangle Lanius, a couple of the extract cards, and Tribute Lanius. So everything's very budget in the deck. Plus we have Rarity Collection reprints of cards like Droll, Effect Veiler, and Nib. So we have really good budget options for this particular deck to run like 12 hand traps. Plus it's super easy to do in this deck. Basically, the whole point, like I said, is to basically establish towers on your side of the field, which is very easy to establish 2 copies of Rising Rebellion Falcon out to your side of the field alongside an Ultimate Falcon. And if your opponent doesn't have the out, they don't have the out. And so it's basically just summoning out 3 monsters to your side of the field that are unaffected by everything. These are all 3 unaffected by everything. Your copy of Rising Rebellion Falcon is a rank 13, which is one of the few rank 13s in the entire game. And Rising Rebellion Falcon also has some pretty cool abilities that it's unaffected by other card effects. And if it's XZ summon, you destroy as many cards your opponent controls as possible. Then if it has 3 or more Raid Raptor XZ monsters with different names as material, you inflict damage to your opponent equal in combined original attack of the destroyed monsters, which can end games on its own, without even talking about this card being a 4,000 attack point boss monster that's just ridiculously easy to summon to your side of the field, which is just insane because you can summon out one on your turn, one on the follow-up, because you can recover back your copy of the Rise Rank Up Magic Raid Raptor's Force. So it's just so easy to be able to do, to summon out this card to your side of the field. And all the boss monsters in the X deck are just really funny to be able to summon. And if you go second, if you can put 2 level 4 monsters on your side of the field, you can summon out Raider's Knight and then summon out your copy of Ark Rebellion. And if your opponent does not have an answer to this card and they have a bunch of attack points on the field, you just OTK them with this card, because this card is going to gain the attack points of every monster on the field, which is just absolutely insane. You just detach a material from it, and this card gains attack equal to the total original attack of all their monsters on the field. Then it basically can swing in for one massive swing to go in for a game. So if they don't have an answer to this, if they don't have the answer, you win the game. So, let's go ahead and check out the next deck. We actually have Marincess. Marincess is a deck that I actually just recently did combos for, which you guys should definitely check it out. This deck is consistently topped ever since it got its support, which has been a while back actually ago, which is from Duels of the Deep. And this deck is really fun to be able to play. There's some really cool 1-card combos with Blue Tang. There's some 2-card combos with Pascalis, and it's just really fun to be able to play, to summon out your copy of Aqua Argonaut to your side of the field, which is basically the main focus of the deck, is to summon out your copy of Aqua Argonaut with a Battle Ocean and then 3 Marincess monsters equipped to it. Again, if you guys would like to, you can definitely check out the combos I have on the channel. They're amazing, and it's very easy to understand this deck because it basically performs pretty much the same combo over and over again. Link climbing, where you basically go in for Blue Slug and then you go for Sea Angel, link both of them away, summon out a copy of Coral Anemone, revive something, go for your Coral Triangle, and then discard or send a Marincess from hand to grave or a water monster to grab your Marincess Wave, which is just going to give you basically a counter trap, or basically kind of sort of a counter trap. And then your Battle Ocean is already set up because you searched it off your copy of Sea Angel. But this deck plays a lot of Link 1, so basically the most important thing to keep in mind about this is you always want to go Blue Slug for Blue Tang. Use Blue Slug to send your copy of Seahorse to the graveyard, and once you send Seahorse to the graveyard, you can grab it back with Blue Slug, special summon it, and then you'll go in for your Sea Angel, and then Sea Angel for basically Seahorse for Sea Angel. So if you can remember, blue for blue, sea for sea, that's what I always tell people when they're trying to learn this deck. And again, this is another one of those decks that we have a lot of free room to be able to play with this budget, because a lot of the cards were printed as commons out of Duelists of the Deep. So we have a lot of room to be able to play around this budget, so we can include cards like Ash Blossom that are like $5 a piece. We can include cards like Crossout Designator that are like $2 to $3 a piece. So we have a lot of room that we can kind of play around with this deck because we have so many reprints for this deck. Something else that's really notable about this deck is Gameciel is like an MVP. Gameciel is really MVP because it outs anything, because like I said before with the previous Raid Raptor deck, if you don't have the out, you don't have the out. But with Gameciel, we always have an out, because our copy of Aqua Argonaut has the ability that basically, quick effect, you can actually special summon one of your Marincess equipped cards to negate a spell or trap, but it also lets you target a water monster you control on a card your opponent controls and return them back to the hand. So you can basically hand your opponent the Kaiju. Once you hand the Kaiju, bounce one of our cards back to hand, bounce the Kaiju back to hand them the Kaiju again. So you basically can double Kaiju your opponent with the copy of the Gameciel and your copy of Aqua Argonaut's 23, where this card is 22. So it's very easy to swing through the copy of the Gameciel if it does get stuck on your opponent's side of the field, which is really cool to be able to do, to be able to just swing through with your copy of Aqua Argonaut. Aqua Argonaut usually comes out at 4,300 when you summon it out, because you basically climb into Aqua Argonaut, and this card is a walking spell and trap negate that moves one of your other Marincess monsters up, and the whole focus is basically Battle Ocean, because Battle Ocean has the ability of all Marincesses that you control gain 200 attack, and for each one, it gains 600 attack for each Marincess monster equipped to it. And monsters that you control in the extra monster zone that will link summon using a Crystal Heart as a material unaffected by your opponent's card effects. And when you link summon a Marincess monster to the extra monster zone, you can target up to 3 of your Marincess link monsters with different names in your grave, and links basically equip them to that link monster. So you summon out your copy of Aqua Argonaut, equip it with 3 link monsters on your side of the field, and once you equip it with those 3 link monsters, it's going to gain a total of 2,000 attack points, boosting this card up to about 43, and it being a walking spell and trap negate, along with all the other hand traps, just stops your opponent in their tracks. Plus this deck recovers like crazy, because on the follow-up you can actually board wipe your opponent, opponent, because if you summon out your copy of Coral Anemone and you use its effect to be able to bring back a monster in the graveyard, we lock ourselves into water. Then if we climb into a link 4, we can just link it away for Zelantis. Zelantis will then banish every monster on the field, and then we summon it back with our own ability of Zelantis, and since we're waterlocked, if our opponent's not playing water, they don't get their monsters back. It just board wipes them, and we don't summon those cards back to the other side of the field. We just keep them banished, which is really neat. Plus, budget options you can play is like the Ranagrini, which is a really good card, and then you can play cards like Gramagrini, which is another really good card that your opponent is going to have to really read and look at and go, huh, what does that do? Which is just a really good card to be able to summon, and it's really reactive to the opponent because it's going to help you out a lot. So, for the last deck, we do have Gate Guardian. Gate Guardian is a super nostalgic deck. This deck is actually very, very budget now that we finally have the reprint for Magician Souls, and it's actually one of the reasons I wanted to put this deck on the list, because Magician Souls actually is very cheap now because of the Rarity Collection 2 reprint. We can get in any rarity we want now, which is really nice. We also got Illusion of Chaos reprinted, making it very easy to be able to get to, and it makes it really nice because the reason you play Magician Souls in the deck is so you can send Kazajan to the graveyard, which gets one of your pieces in the grave, so you can summon out Gate Guardian combined. Basically, you don't super need any of these link monsters, because something important to note about the deck is that as you use your copy of Wall Shadow or Labyrinth Wall Shadow, the field spell, monsters cannot attack the turn they are summoned except those that are level 5 or higher. So link monsters and XZ monsters cannot attack, which is hilarious about this deck, because if your opponent's playing a link-based strategy, they go battle phase, you go Labyrinth Wall Shadow, they go, oh, and then you just win the next game, because you can use cards like Ryoku Guardian to be able to half your opponent's life points and boost your copy of Gate Guardian combined, usually to about 7,750, and then swing in because your opponent's going to be at 4,000 because of the effect of Ryoku Guardian, which is such a powerful card. Plus, we can summon out cards like Dark Guardian, which is insane. But the entire focus of the deck is to get 3 cards in your hand that can get you a Gate Guardian piece either on the field or in the graveyard, with those cards being your heavy Labyrinth tank, being able to place one in the back row, just like Para and Dox did, by putting them in the back row. Basically, as continuous spells, you put them in like that coffin-like thing, which is really cool to put them as continuous spells in the back row. You can use cards like Shadow Ghoul of the Labyrinth to be able to search out your copy of Labyrinth Wall Shadow, which will let you place one on the field once per turn, and it's not a hard once per turn, so you can activate multiple of this per turn, which is amazing. We also play cards like Double Attack Wind and Thunder. If you control a Gate Guardian, you can target a card on the field and destroy it. And also during the main phase, you can banish this card in the grave to add one of your Gate Guardian pieces that's banished during your deck to your hand, so you can get either a Sangha, a Kazajan, or a Sujin. And again, I will tell you this, guys, definitely play them all at 2 because it makes it so much more budget, A, and B, it also makes it so much easier to be able to see them, so we can go in for a boss monster Gate Guardian combined, which is really cool. I also play this deck on stream when I do stream Master Duel, so you guys should definitely hit the bell to be able to get the notifications for that, because this deck is wild. I've carried it all the way up into like some insane ranks. It's really fun to be able to play in Master Duel. It's fun to be able to play in regular like play as well. It is very easy to half your life points with a hero lives, summon out Prisma, pick one of your Gate Guardian pieces, reveal your copy of Gate Guardian combined, turn this card into a Gate Guardian piece on the field, get one in the graveyard, and you're already set up, and all you need is like one more piece on the field. You can step into a double spell and trap negate. You can step into a search a Gate Guardian card. You can step into a card that lets you drop an opponent's monster's attack points down to 0 and use that effect of twice per turn. Also, you can basically use this twice per turn to negate spells and traps once per chain. And then we have a thrice per turn negate, which is targeting, which is insane. And all of these cards float, which is really cool. All of the 2s can be made with Gate Guardian pieces that are on the field. But your copy of Gate Guardian combined can actually be made with Gate Guardian pieces in your hand, field, or your graveyard by just banishing them, which is really cool to be able to make, because this card is massive. It comes out at $37.50, which is so big. Plus, you have Dark Guardian that can be summoned off of Dark Element, which Dark Guardian cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special by Dark Element, and it has to be summoned out by special summoning it from your hand or grave by shuffling it into deck. You want each of your Gate Guardian pieces from your hand, face it from field, graveyard, or banishment, and then also it cannot be destroyed by battle, and if it's special by the effect of Dark Element, it's also unaffected by monster effects or your opponent's activated spell effects, which is really tough to out a 3,800 attack point boss monster on your side of the field, which is amazing. This deck is really fun. It's actually one of my favorite decks to be able to play. I've carried it to locals in like 1, which is really fun to be able to do. Not this exact build, this is a budget version of the build that I play, but it's still really fun to be able to play. So I think that's going to do it for this one, guys. Definitely tell me down below what deck you guys are going to be building building out of these 5 decks, or another deck that you guys would like to build that's about $50, or other suggestions for budget decks for other videos. If you guys like this video, definitely give it a like, because it really helps out for YouTube and I really appreciate it. And also definitely comment down below if you guys are enjoying these style of videos, because I'm going to keep making them if I see good response for them. And it's just super fun to be able to show you guys an actual budget deck list. A lot of people don't just show you the list. They're just like, hey, you can build Gate Guardian for 50 bucks, or hey, you can build, Dynamorphia for 50 bucks, or hey, you can build this deck for 50 bucks, and they don't show you a list. And I really wanted to like actually show you guys a list so that you can see the list and see that it is actually $50 to be able to build this deck, which is really nice. Nothing wrong with those other style of videos, just another way to show you guys, here's an actual list that you can actually build for 50 bucks, because all the other cards in this deck are just like quarters. They're pennies, they're quarters, they're nothing. They're bulk that you can find that people will just give you at locals, or you can find it in like the bulk boxes at locals, which is really nice. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.